What's going on there, folks? Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're at. It's your Earthmaster here on this Saturday night. It is February 11th, 2023, 9:36 in the PM out here in the United States, in the state of California, out here along the West Coast. Latest earthquake activity shows a 2.0 into the area of the Big Island of Hawaii. This comes after a little bit of uptick out there today, 3.8 coming in earlier as well. Before we get into the earthquake activity, kind of want to discuss the cyclone out there about ready to hit the North Island, New Zealand area. Hurricane. I'm used to the hurricanes, right? Cyclone Gabrielle churning off the north coast here, north of Auckland, North Island, New Zealand area. This thing is gaining some strength. Here is the visible true color animation over the last 3 hours. This is up-to-date information here. As you can see, the eye wall kind of positioned off the coast of the North Island area. Now, I want to bring in a little bit of information here on this cyclone from the windy map. Windy map does give a good impression of what's going on, not only at the wind levels here, but also the precipitation amounts that do tend to accumulate from these strong cyclones. This is expected here over the next 24 hours around the Auckland area, northward, getting in on some decent precipitation here. A couple inches expected in the region of North Island, New Zealand. Now, over the next 3 days or so, as this storm system continues to progress south. Some of these models here, I think these are a little bit overblown. Some of these models are probably showing about 2 feet or so of rainfall, but I think these are a little bit overblown in that prediction. But either way, you can expect a lot of wind, a lot of rain throughout that area of the North Island, New Zealand. Current region by region warnings put out here by the New Zealand Herald. As of 12:30 p.m., we got 20 upgraded heavy rain and strong wind warning and watches in place. Here are the recent updated images here, or the warnings in the respected areas. Quite a bit of rain and wind expected, that's for sure. Let's check out the projected track here of this cyclone. I know it's it looks pretty massive here on this image, and it is definitely a very strong cyclone. But we're going to put this into play here. Come around, this is going to be my time. Guys, got to remember this. So Sunday, 5 a.m. my time. This is going to be adjusted according to your local time there in New Zealand, but this is going to be West Coast time here in California, so you're going to have to act accordingly. Or if you want to check this out yourself, go to windy.com. This is a very useful app in determining the path of a cyclone or hurricane or any specific storm for that matter. So we're definitely going to get some fairly decent wind up here around the Auckland area. I'm going to position this just right around the Auckland area, North Island, New Zealand, and play this out a little bit and watch these adjusted wind speeds over the next few hours. And as that eye wall gets closer, of course, the strongest area here around the cyclone in the southern hemisphere will be down here around the southwestern edge of the cyclone, and a pretty good brunt of wind hitting almost the entire area of the North Island, New Zealand area come about Sunday my time at 10 p.m. Now this image shows a wide swath here of the North Island getting in on some heavy rainfall and some heavy duty wind out there. I'm a big fan of the weather, so I don't like to call this type of weather bad or terrible weather, because in my mind, my perspective, I enjoy this type of weather. But the best thing you can do out there, if you're worried about it, is be prepared and heed to the warnings that any local authorities have to throw out there. Just to the west of Auckland, here comes Monday the 13th at 7 a.m. my time here along the west coast, 80 to potentially 90 mile per hour wind gusts here just on the western side, again the southwestern side of the eye wall of this cyclone. Pretty impressive, very strong system. and it will continue to work its way south. Look at that, around Monday into Monday night, my time. The eye wall pretty much disassembles. And, of course, that's typical of any cyclone, any type of hurricane that moves over land. Now, as we move into Tuesday time period, notice the wide area, or at least the area around that cyclone, begins to broaden. That's a sign of weakness. You definitely want to look for tightness in terms of these tropical storms, these tropical hurricanes and cyclones. They tighten up like a pinwheel, if you will. So when they put on this type of fashion here, a broad area of low pressure, that's a good sign of it weakening. For the folks down there in Christchurch, South Island, New Zealand, Timothy, that lives down there, going to get some wind gusts, but nothing drastic. Most of the activity will be confined up there to the North Island, New Zealand area before it continues to dissipate and head out a little bit further into the Pacific. And yeah, that's that. So if you guys, I know I have quite a few viewers out there in the New Zealand area, send me your guys' video and photos if you want to be seen here over the next couple days here on the channel, on the YouTube channel. We'll gladly share your video and pictures out here with the entire community. Just give me your location, your name, and maybe where we're looking at, what we're looking at. But either way, pretty strong cyclone about to hit the North Island, New Zealand area. It does look pretty impressive here on the radar imagery. Let's zoom in here just a little bit and go to right about now. We're going to put this into, well, let's bring up the infrared here. Here's a visible. For some reason on the infrared, it's kind of missing out on a lot of the high clouds out here. The infrared showing most of the convection around the southern area of the cyclone, with minimal activity up north, but I think that's typical across the southern hemisphere here. Like I say, I'm not too familiar with the cyclones down there. We're used to hurricanes and whatnot spinning the other way up here in the northern hemisphere. But either way, a pretty powerful system set to hit the North Island, New Zealand area. So we'll be watching and, of course, reporting back on that as things progress down there in New Zealand. What's going on out here along the West Coast? Well, a little bit of everything. We had a 3-pointer up in Wyoming, a 3.5. I can't really say it's associated with Yellowstone because it's a ways away from Yellowstone, to the south here around the mountain ranges. 3.5 near Kelly, Wyoming, at about 5 kilometers deep. Now, Yellowstone activity has been off and on far as earthquake swarming goes here over the last couple days. There is that 3.5 showing up rather nicely across the majority of the Yellowstone seismograms here in Wyoming, and that's very typical. We haven't seen any further aftershock activity and no major adjustments to Yellowstone as far as the swarming goes. Looks like that may have come to a complete stop here earlier this afternoon. But a couple small earthquakes there in the mix. But either way, a little bit of activity up there in Wyoming currently taking place. Pacific Northwest, some movement across the Cascades and around a couple of these volcanoes, Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, although nothing of significance in terms of volcanic activity. Up into the Cascadia subduction zone, the latest quake shows a 2.5, about 20 kilometers deep, and that is, see, we've been watching this migration here of earthquake activity kind of working its way upstream, if you will, towards the locked area. And this area right here with this 2.5 struck here today, about 4:46 here my time, 20 kilometers deep. Now that is within the range of the locked area of the Cascadia, the southern end. We've been watching this area light up, kind of like a fuse, if you will, over the last, literally it's been going on for the last couple weeks, last couple months. Here's the last week of activity, noticing that migration upstream here, starting at some deeper levels, and it's working its way up towards the locked area of the Cascadia, and that's where all the pressure and the steam has been building up for 323 years. along the Cascadia, and it's just a matter of time before that 9-pointer decides to make itself known in the history books here of this country. I'm definitely prepared. Who knows when it's going to happen, but it's always a good idea to make sure you have an earthquake plan out here along the West Coast, and more specifically for the folks here along the coast. Some beautiful areas out here around Eureka northward, but again, you guys are in a major tsunami hazard zone out there. If the shaking doesn't get you, I guarantee you the tsunami will. It's always good to be prepared to head to higher ground if you feel some strong shaking out there. Let's check out the tremor map here tonight and see what we have. I haven't even checked this out yet. Okay, 93 epicenters up here north into the state of Washington. Now, this is activity underneath the land, underneath the ground here, about 45 kilometers deep, down into the subduction level underneath the North American plate here. Nothing going on in Northern California. Kind of surprising considering this activity we've seen here today along the Cascadia. The rest of California, very typical movement across the Clear Lake volcanic field. Bay Area remains awfully quiet. Let me double check, make sure we got the most recent. Yes, we do. Ridgecrest area, calm. Not a whole lot going on. In fact, if you look at the majority of Southern California, there's not even one red circle here. The last earthquake was from 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock earlier this afternoon here. So it's a little odd, right? Definitely a little odd, but things seem to be taking a break here across the West Coast. Movement inland, though, into the Great Basin area in Nevada. Seeing things light up here with a couple red circles, some very small microquakes across the area of Nevada. Movement out into the Plain States. Most of the activity from earlier this afternoon. And generally speaking, the North American plate out here, as far as the states go, is backing off on activity. Across the Alaska region, mostly some smaller quakes here across the area. We did see a 4.2 coming in. Pretty deep earthquake into the Alaska region. Now, I want to see where this is at. I think this is from the EMSC. Source parameters provided by the National Earthquake Information Center, which is the USGS, which is surprising. But they reported a 4.2, 123 kilometers deep. Now, if we check out up here, let's see where that 4.2 is at. Do you guys see it? I don't see it. A little odd. It's being reported by the USGS, but it's not being listed by the USGS. It's a little on the odd side. So it's possible that this could be the quake in question. It's a 3.3 earlier this evening, 123 kilometers deep. At 1859. 1859? 1859. This is going to be 0259, but that's going to be the UTC time. So there is quite a dramatic magnitude difference there. 4.2 that the EMSC is reporting compared to a 3.3. That's a huge downgrade. But either way, some deeper activity kicking up here into the region of Alaska over the last 24 hours. And we can see that kind of stretching up there towards Denali. Something brewing up there. The Big Island, Hawaii, lighting up like crazy. We did see a 3.8, somewhat of a larger magnitude out here along the Pahala area, just southeast of the Big Island here, just offshore. Not associated with the Loihi Seamount. This activity occurring about 30 kilometers deep below the oceanic crust here. A couple earthquakes within the last hour as well. On top of that, let's go ahead and check out the volcano hazards here across the region of the Big Island, just to make sure, kind of see what's going on out here. So, Kilauea Volcano, I'm going to go see what's going on the Big Island. No major changes have been noted in their daily updates there. It just shows, typical wording that there's been no significant changes. This update was put out early this morning, February 11th, 2023. And no major changes have been reported over the last 24 hours. And the eruptive locations there remain within the crater floor, it looks like, over the past 24 hours. So nothing really new to report in that area. But we are going to check seismograph station and see what we got here. Past 12 hours here. around the Kilauea volcano doesn't look too active. I'm kind of looking for that 3.8. I'm guessing it's going to be a little bit more centered down here to the southeast. But then again, maybe that's it right there. No, I don't believe so. That's a little bit on the early side. So let's see, these are old. Look at these. These are from a couple days ago. What's going on there, USGS? No wonder we're not seeing that 3.9. These are some old data sources out there. Look at that. I'm trying to pull a fast one on me tonight. Let's see. Hold on. Stand by for a second here. Let me pull up a couple. Technically, a 3.8 should show up here as well. A lot of these stations are not showing any data across the Big Island here. Past 12 hours. Look at that. Data is old. 2.9 to 2.10. These are a good 24, 36 hours old. What's going on out there? Goodness. I go to the source and they provide me with garbage. All right, so we'll have to keep checking back on that and see what's going on. All I know is there is some earthquake activity, obviously shown up here on the earthquake map. And 3.8, again, is somewhat of a moderate quake here for this area. We'll continue to watch it and report back on it as we can continue to monitor it. Out here along the western edge of the Philippine Plate, some movement earlier this morning of 4.7 there in Taiwan, 35 kilometers deep. Other than that, some deeper activity up north off the coast of Japan. The northwestern edge here of the Philippine Plate near the Kumano Ridge, it looks like. A little bit of activity there into the Molucca Sea area, 5.9 coming in early this morning, just after midnight. Now, looking at the data here, we do see a couple threes and some other smaller quakes in that area of the Indonesia region and the Philippines area. 3.5 here around the Java Trench, a pretty recent earthquake. And Turkey area, seeing some activity as well. Of course, aftershock activity will continue for a while. Some threes further west into the Mediterranean region. Let's see what we got going on here. Nothing showing up, surprisingly, across the USGS. That's how it is. But there is some threes, including a 2.0 coming in here right now. We are noticing a little bit of uptick in earthquake activity across this plate boundary, as noted here on the EMSC globe. Middle America Trench showing some activity. Couple fours kicking off down there off the coast of Nicaragua. See if I can spit that out tonight. My brain's a little bit fried from input overload. Can that even happen? Too much information? I think it can. I seen that movie. You guys remember Short Circuit back in the 80s? I'm not giving away my age, but I love that movie. Absolutely a big fan of Short Circuit. Yeah, I'm going to take a break from input. Let's see what else we got here across the area. Yeah, Puerto Rico. Not a whole lot going on down here. We're looking at a little bit of swarming returning there to the southwestern edge of Puerto Rico. Some twos. Yeah, let's see what else here. New Zealand, Kermadec Trench area. There's a deeper earthquake, that 4.8 coming in early this morning, about 11 o'clock or so. 40 kilometers deep. Let me give a quick glance here at the GeoNet servers. I try to make sure I include the New Zealand area because it is definitely on a major plate boundary and also within a major subduction zone there. The Hikurangi subduction zone, a major player one day in producing a devastating earthquake. It has in the past. And it will in the future. 5.2, 500 kilometers deep. Now, this is one of those earthquakes. Let's see here. 500 kilometers deep. Let me check out the earthquake drums up here. See what we got going on across the area. I believe that's that 5-pointer that sit up here on the graph. But that has been over 4 hours ago. So maybe they made a little bit of adjustment out here. Definitely well over 4 hours ago. I don't see anything after that. Quick glance here at the volcanic drums. See what we have going on across New Zealand. Man, aside from that major cyclone coming in, volcanoes look pretty quiet. Earthquake activity at minimal. Just batting down the hatchet there with the cyclone coming in. I don't know. Do you guys have cyclone parties down into the New Zealand area? In Texas, when I was down here a couple years back covering that hurricane that came into the area around Louisiana, Lake Charles, Beaumont area. This whole area was under evacuation, but I sat out here because I do have news and media authorization to cover stories. I remember coming across a few folks out there in areas of I think it was just east of Galveston here, along this this area. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a huge cross out there on the beach, and I remember coming across a couple guys there. They enjoyed it. They loved the rough waves. They were out there swimming in it at night. The rip currents were crazy, but that's what they were shooting for. They have these hurricane parties down there, and it's crazy. It's really crazy. I'm a big fan of weather, but I don't know if I'm going to go out there and party with it. A little on the crazy side, but hey. So yeah, I mean, let me know. New Zealand, you guys have those type of parties as the folks in the American community does? Let us know in the comments. Let's see, what else do we have here? Space weather activity. Continuing to get red up here on the board. That's a good sign. Well, I shouldn't say good sign, but an elevated sign of solar weather activity in terms of potential energy there across these sunspots. The solar flux index currently sitting at 210. That's pretty heightened. We do have a couple sunspots here to watch that do harbor some potential for some X flares, such as 3217, which harbors a beta gamma delta class that has already produced an M3.0 and also an X 1.1. So some significant flares popping off from that area. Looking at the regional sunspots here, this is looking very active. 3217 is our main culprit. Let's look at the most recent image here. Oh yeah, look at this. It's growing like crazy. This little regional sunspot here, 3217. But as a whole, it's looking very dynamic. A couple different named sunspots, but 3217 here looks pretty promising there for some activity. Also over here, we're getting a little bit more complex structure within these sunspots, and those two harbor some potential for some further flaring as well. That's going to be sunspot 3214 and 3213 up here, looking pretty dynamic. And behind the bend, there's a train of sunspots that we need to watch. Overall threat right now is elevated, folks, with a 30% chance for an X flare. I think we will see that from 3217 as it rotates into the Earth view. It has yet to produce an explosive eruptive flare. That would include a CME, but I think it's lining up, and it will be facing Earth here in the coming days. 30% chance for an X flare, 80% chance for an M flare, and of course 99% certainty for a C flare. Current solar flare conditions here shows us crackling with a bunch of C flares peeking up possibly into the M flare here. There's our X flare from earlier, and X 1.1 from 3217. Again, this image, it almost looks like it's starting to flare right now. There's our current flare. Potentially over here as well. We got a couple different sunspots that are competing with one another potentially, but notice this brightness here in the image. That's flaring. That's what we look for. So this area right here, as I mentioned, and also 3217 down here. They look like they want to provide us with some news. So we'll watch these overnight. I wouldn't doubt if we see another X flare overnight, so be prepared. Not going to pose any hazard here to Earth unless you're on the high frequency and low frequency bandwidth. It does prevent, it actually causes a little blackout within those systems, potentially navigation systems as well. But we would want to see a massive CME, Earth directed, to affect Earth directly, and that would mean auroras. Again, the X flares do not really create auroras unless they produce a subsequent large CME Earth directed. A little bit of a Little bit of info there. Current aurora forecast is fairly minimal. Looks like maybe 10 to 20% chance up there around Canada, Alaska, and potentially maybe Greenland, as well as Iceland over here as well. It kind of looks like it's just on the northern end of Iceland. So Antarctica maybe as well, but again, those are generally light forecasts there. Alrighty, guys, I am going to jump off here. My brain is ready to shut down. I'm not even joking. I think between the UFOs in Montana, Canada, and who knows where else. You know, there's all sorts of weird stuff going around, but that's something I'm not going to discuss here too much on this channel unless it becomes verified. A lot of folks are taking advantage of the Chinese, you know, supposed spy surveillance balloon here last week. A lot of folks using that what's the word I'm looking for, that sensitive time to pull some fast ones and make some fake videos out there in regards to, you know, unidentified objects in the sky. Not saying that they didn't happen. What do we got here? 2.3 coming into the New Madrid zone as we speak. Notice that 2.3 New Madrid zone, 9 kilometers deep. So, but I've seen a couple videos out there around Montana that can be easily explained due to lack of perception from one's view on the ground. We'll get into that maybe another video. Maybe we'll cover that in a different update. But either way, stay safe out there. And of course, the best thing to do if you see some unusual stuff, right, is to record it and give basic details on what's going on, what's happening, not just hearsay or assumptions. But all right, guys, I'm going to jump off here. Have a good night. Stay safe. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow. Have a good one.